Okay, today we have a super exciting topic to discuss, which includes the metaverse and Web3 and NFT and decentralized virtual worlds, as well as how we might buy and sell land and digital products. And who else to discuss this with than Sebastien Borget, who is the co-founder and COO of Sandbox, one of the world's most popular metaverse platforms that where people like Snoop Dogg and brands like Gucci and HSBC have bought virtual plots. And I believe you're also the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance, right?
That's right.
So I'm so happy to have you with us. Welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm just back here in our Paris office. Yes, I'm pleased to be here with you today as well, Bernard.
Very good. So maybe we can start very widely because there's such a hype around the metaverse at the moment, and everyone seems to have a slightly different definition of what the metaverse is and where it is going. So where do you what do you think the metaverse is, and where is it going in the future?
Well, for us, the metaverse, which you're right, like has been really hyped since almost last October, since Facebook rebranded itself as Meta, even though the concept itself came to life from science fiction books with Snow Crash and science fiction movies with Ready Player One. To us, the metaverse is really this myriad of virtual worlds where users can access through an avatar, that avatar that becomes a 3D representation of themselves, all sort of new kind of experience, more engaging, more fun, more creative, more immersive. But unlike what we've seen before with traditional virtual worlds where actually users could already socialize, etc., here really what's important is the ability of users to truly own their identity, to truly own all their belongings, their digital assets, such as their equipment, their wearables, even their virtual land or their virtual houses. And they are able to move that identity, that avatar, from one world to another without being constrained, without being locked, or to ask permission to the platform or virtual world they are from. That's really this true open metaverse. That's the vision that the Sandbox is contributing to as we're creating it using the blockchain technology and NFTs.
Very good. This is super exciting. And how realistic do you think that we will have one unified metaverse? Because I can't see this happening. I think we will have multiple metaverses where they will be competing geographic regions and brands building their own virtual place. What do you think?
I'm absolutely in favor and supportive to the idea that there will be millions of virtual world, millions of places where users can take their avatar. What's important is like they have this ability finally to move from one to another and while they can keep that avatar, they can keep all the content they create in one to use it into others through a technical possibility enabled by blockchain, which is like this decentralized public database. And this technical possibility is called interoperability of your assets, which right now was not possible. Like we've seen virtual world for more than 25 years. We've seen Second Life, World of Warcraft, Fortnite, Roblox, or Minecraft. But in each one of them, they exist as their own and only centralized walled garden place where you cannot take a content you create in one and use it into another, or even don't even think about transferring it to other users or selling it, etc. Now we're already seeing with the Sandbox, with Decentraland, Somnium Space, Crypto Voxel, and a few others that are part of this open metaverse, the possibility for users to start exploring one or the other, keeping using their belongings, even greater, like use content that was not even made on those platforms to demonstrate really this interoperability. So we are still early on, so it's definitely not yet happening at a massive scale, but it's happening. And that's, I think, one of the important aspects to take into consideration, as it will keep growing in terms of adoption in demonstrating those technical capabilities.
Very good. You talked about the virtual world using virtual reality. Do you believe that augmented reality will also be part of the metaverse that you see?
I definitely see like the metaverse to be technology will increase the creativity, the creative possibilities offered to users, both in terms of experience and in terms of like content creation, building, etc. However, the way we are going to experience doesn't need to be only attached to a device or a certain medium of like exploring. Typically, many people think like the metaverse is only about VR and virtual reality headset. That's maybe the vision that Meta is trying to sell you because they have an interest doing so. They own Oculus, so they want to sell their hardware. But really, truthfully, I believe like the metaverse can only scale to millions of users, hundreds of millions of users, if it is actually accessible just with a 2D screen, any computer, PC, Mac, or mobile device from anywhere, without having the extra requirement of VR. Actually, VR is more a barrier to the experience, to the entry. It might be interesting, but we're not yet at a stage where VR is comfortable enough to use and provide like a great mainstream experience that millions of people are ready to spend hours and hours a day with a VR headset into the metaverse. However, we're already seeing people spending hours a day in front of a 2D screen on the mobile or laptop and already engaging with some of those new type of experiences that are found in Sandbox and other, such as like virtual shows, virtual concerts, visiting art galleries, discovering museums, playing games, and more.
Very good. So for anyone who is not familiar with Sandbox, what is it, and how do you become part of it?
So we see Sandbox as a decentralized gaming virtual world, which provide a more creative environment where anyone without any previous skill, any previous knowledge can make their 3D content or even their whole experiences, their whole game, their whole stories, adventure, etc. And they can sell them, they can monetize them through the use of blockchain technology and NFTs. We started about 10 years ago. The Sandbox franchise actually started 10 years ago on mobile, originally with this idea that we wanted to turn any players into a creator just by the touch of their finger on new technology. By then was the touch screen on smartphones. They could create 2D pixelated world and share them. It's been massively successful. We had millions of installs, 40 million, 70 million player made creation. And we progressively iterated this until in 2018, we launched a third version of it, this time becoming no longer just a single game on mobile, but more a whole platform that includes several tools, a 3D editor called VoxEdit, a marketplace where the content you create can be sold as NFTs to anyone, a map becoming a virtual world, and a no-code game maker where you can create essentially just by drag and dropping your assets, and already within seconds you have a cool experience to be made. And the big transformation we saw, and it was actually one of our frustration, is like users were spending literally hours, sometimes days or weeks, creating content, and they could not really get back a really meaningful revenue share or any revenue share at all from the content they brought to the game. And that content they brought to the game, we all know that many platforms are actually living and their business model is all around the monetization of UGC. And we found it was unfair and hard to actually provide this remuneration to all those creators, which drive the revenue of the platform, the companies that create the game. So when we found about NFTs toward the end of 2017, we actually saw immediately the possibility of like leveraging this technology so that anyone could make their NFTs. Those NFTs could be useful with that game maker, that tool that allows them to create a whole world and games. And through that, they could fully own and receive like 95% of the revenue from any content they create and they sell on the platform. And that, I think, is probably the largest revolution in terms of like what the metaverse has to offer right now. Like it's really the empowerment of creator, like truly providing them the revenue from the content they create or the time they are going to spend as users, as opposed to existing platform where like at best they might earn 50 to 70% depending on the game from the content they create, but still being locked into one platform only instead of having access to this whole Web3 decentralized network of application, games, and virtual worlds.
So what sort of content do you see people creating that they can actually monetize?
Well, you'll be surprised. Like that's one thing that I find amazing is like with UGC, you never get bored. Like the creativity of users will always exceed even the most talented people you could have internally at the company. And so at Sandbox, we're seeing our foundation, which is also funded through the token of the platform Sand, is supporting already more than 100 different projects, very varied one, kind of project that actually you wouldn't find on traditional app stores or a store because they are not necessarily revenue driven immediately. They are more focused on like experience, creativity. So emergent gameplay, virtual concerts, content you can find such as like avatars, equipment for the avatar. Virtual houses is a category that's like really booming. And of course, it's related to the virtual real estate land, digital land. That is also something I think like new in the metaverse, like virtual land can be owned, can be rented to creator, is a gateway toward monetization in most of the cases. Pass, like those owning an NFT from owning a character or any kind of content that is an NFT, it means being part of a community. And being part of that community can give you access to certain experiences, to extra content as well. That's one of the possibilities offered here. And so we are seeing more than 100 studios around the world, thousands of 3D artists using voxels, voxels being this sort of like digital Legos, very simple, very accessible to use, creating content to populate the metaverse that, to be transparent and frank with you, at the beginning will be literally empty. So that's also exciting to think like the metaverse will be built in majority by users themselves, that they can own the content they create, they will monetize them. So that really spawn like a whole digital economy and plenty of digital jobs. And also along that, we'll find a lot of IPs and brands that bring that 1% of content, adding culture in the metaverse, bridging between physical world and virtual world, like you can see behind myself with content from like gaming studios like Atari, music artists like Deadmau5, Steve Aoki, Jamiroquai, Snoop Dogg. You find Ubisoft, but you also find brands from lifestyle like Adidas or music with Warner Music Group or The Walking Dead and so on. And having a place, creative place where you can actually play around with content with so many different brands you love from anywhere, from any region of the world. And as a creator can use them to mix, remix, create all sorts of experience. That's also is quite unique. That's something that hasn't been found or seen before and is available in Sandbox.
Yeah, so it started off as a game, then it became the digital universe where people can buy plots of land in the digital world. And then you have the creative engine, your object creation tool that allows people to create anything from houses to objects. If they wanted to build a music venue, if they wanted to build anything, they can do this. If they wanted to build clothes for their avatars and make them and sell them, and then those are then minted as NFTs, so people own them, they can sell them. You've got your own trading platform that allows people to sell their digital houses, their digital land, their digital goods, right?
Well, we provide one marketplace indeed for users to sell, like primary sale being there. But the beauty of being part of this Web3 decentralized ecosystem is that there are many other marketplaces for digital assets. One of them, the most popular, being OpenSea, meaning users can take their content made in Sandbox and sell them anywhere they like, even outside Sandbox, without having to ask us, etc. And that is interesting because now those NFT marketplace also become the new way for discovering application, discovering games. Like you first find about the content. Oh, I love this avatar. What can I will buy there on this sort of eBay of digital asset. And now like, where can I use it? What can I do with it? Oh, I can interact with it into multiple virtual worlds. That's great. And that's indeed one of the most popular category of content we're seeing in the metaverse, avatars, which represent your digital identity and is also unique as an NFT, meaning like no one else can have the same avatar as you have.
Very good. When it comes to selling land, for example, so what's the starting price for virtual land on Sandbox right now?
So just maybe to put like the bigger context, we have a map that contains 166, 464 lands in total. And there will never ever be more lands available. So we choose to have a finite map. Doesn't mean like any metaverse, any decentralized world will have the same as Sandbox, but among the infinity of virtual worlds, Sandbox has a finite map. We sold about 70% of it to date. We are proud to have more than 21,500 landowners, which also make us the most distributed in terms of ownership. No one owning more than 1% of that world. And we always sell land, the one by one, which is roughly 100 meter by 100 meter, 1 hectare of SAT, pretty big for creativity, at 1,011 cents. It's always 1,011 cents. So that's the interesting part. Now, Sand, as a UTT token platform, is also traded around many global exchanges, including Coinbase, Binance, CoinCheck, Kraken, etc. So it can fluctuate. And we're roughly at $1,000 for a land parcel. Then users who buy those can decide to sell them on those secondary marketplace we were talking about right before, like OpenSea. And there we're seeing on the secondary market, depending on location, is this land a neighbor of Snoop Dogg or Atari or The Walking Dead? Price that could range around like 3,000, 4,000 for that one by one. The largest parcel are 24 by 24, so that's 576 bigger. They are, I think the largest price on the secondary market has been $4.5 million. But that's so big, actually, that users might not need it. So it's more like a larger company decided to acquire it to develop it in the future with many content and experiences.
That's fascinating. And I heard you say once that you believe that the metaverse economy will potentially be bigger at some point than the real world economy. Do you believe that?
Well, if you heard me say so, of course I do believe it. I see, quite interestingly, I feel like the metaverse is a way to give access to many new opportunities and access to more chances of people to work and have new kind of skills that are not necessarily found in the real world or are not taught at school to become valuable. Let me just give you two examples. First one, creator. Like nobody teach you to create with voxel, to make content, make experience at school. And most of the creators who enter Sandbox, and now some of them earn more than the salary. Some of them earn so well that they started their studio and have 20, 40 people working with them as a business. So they become entrepreneurs. They never made video games before. They found about Sandbox during the pandemic. They engaged into some of the contests. They found they were very skilled at using it, almost like digital Legos again. And they built to sell the content and their skills toward like landowners, IP brands, and more. But when you think even the bigger picture, like player can become a new job. You do not need to be the best performing player in the world, like in esport. Esport is very competitive kind of gameplay. So only the top 1% of players who are training all the time can reach a success and make monetization. Here, actually, as you play all the content you collect in game, you complete quests, you win them, and you earn digital content. That digital content is an NFT. So you can choose to hold it, use it into other game, or sell it on the marketplace. And selling it can drive a revenue that is a new source of income. And that's, you can make some people earn a revenue through their active engagement, whether they are playing games, they are attending, I don't know, virtual concert, they are learning new skills while they are spending time with their avatar into those virtual worlds.
Okay, so the initial drive was as a game. So people would come to the sandbox to play games. What sort of games would they play?
Well, that's right now the kind of gameplay that they can find in Sandbox is mostly related also or limited in a way by the capability of our game makers. So the Sandbox platform is still in beta. The features that are mostly available is like narrative quests, timers, fights. So you will find based on that adventure game, RPG, fighting, treasure finding, treasure platformer, typically. But what's interesting is those core mechanics. They are the core mechanics you will find in any game nowadays. So that's why we chose to start with that. And even more interesting is like you can use those mechanics to gamify other kind of experience, like going to a club, talking to character, finding a hidden object in the club, performing dances, etc. That's a way to drive engagement, have fun, etc. That you haven't seen in other traditional virtual worlds, which are like, oh, we're open, we're launching a party, and that's it. They just expect people to come to socialize at a certain point of time. That might be great at that point of time, but afterwards, there's nothing left to do. There's no more objective, no goals, no progression, no quest. So that's not a good reason for them to come back. That's why we're seeing many times that virtual worlds are usually empty. That's what we try to fight against with the gaming mechanism. We're adding a lot more gaming mechanism from more dance and other expression movement, from different attacks, platformer, multiplayer. It has to be multiplayer gameplay. Virtual effect for creating your own shows and concerts, and soon like shooting mechanism, etc. So progressively, the kind of experience we'll find will be even more diverse already.
So the main game is something that you develop, or do you also let other companies create their own games within the platform?
So the goal, again, is this idea the Metaverse will be 99% user-generated content. Anyone will build its own content, publish it on the Metaverse, and bring its audience into it. Sandbox is still in development. We're in the beta stage, and we have opened only quite recently to the public. The first time we did was in December 2021. The last time was in March with something called the Alpha Season. Alpha Season is a curated selection of experiences made by our team, made by the community, meaning users, and made by brands that showcase like the diversity of experience and the possibilities the Metaverse has to offer. In the season 2, we had more than 350,000 users overall on the month. And we had brands like South China Morning Post, who brought a lot of culture, the history of Hong Kong. We had Snoop Dogg, who could visit his mansion and play around. And we had Blondish, which is a DJ that launched new exclusive tracks within a club called Club XYZ. 35 experiences. The next season that will soon be announced will include about 100 experiences with almost all of them made by the community and brands. So moving forward, UGC, and by the end of the year, the goal will be like publishing will be open on Sandbox, so anyone can launch their season and their experience directly.
Very good. And I believe recently Paris Hilton has also joined Sandbox.
Well, if you follow Sandbox over social media, you can see every week, if not every day, there's news. Indeed, Paris Hilton, Jamie Rockway. I think today we're going to announce a major movie entertainment company. We've what I love about like the way we're building Sandbox is we're making it as global, diverse and inclusive and culturally rich. So we are very attached to bring not just content from US or Europe, but also we have brands and content from various regions of the world, including Korea with Pororo, SM Entertainment, one of the largest K-pop label, Shibuya 109 in Japan, which is a very famous place, the building right in front of the Shibuya crossing. We have and we're going to bring more and more. Actually, you'll find soon in Sandbox the French Touch Corner, Dubaiverse, Turkeyverse, Bollywood Lands, Bollywood City. The K-verse is coming as well, and that's also a way to make sure, like the experience, the brand you find, they are as attractive to you, no matter where you are in the world, no matter your culture, and that's a good way to engage with you to make you engage, to want to jump in, to make you want to create your avatar and start participating into this new world.
Yeah, and I can see how brands create their own little world, whether it be the Bollyverse or the K-verse. How do you then venture into other spaces? So how does it work? How do you take your avatar from taking part in one experience and then move to another?
So that's already part of like the avatar is an NFT. It's an asset on a blockchain. You can use that avatar. So in Sandbox, the same avatar is your identity that represents yourself, and across all the different experiences, you keep that avatar. That's already quite different than many other platforms where the avatar keeps changing as you play into different games. There's also something quite interesting. I believe we're the first that demonstrated the possibility to play with an avatar that was actually not created in Sandbox. There's several NFT collection, very popular within the Web3 ecosystem, like the Bored Ape, like World of Women, just to name a few. And what we did is we worked to transform those avatar collection from being just 2D pictures into 3D characters, animated, that can do 70 kind of action, like jumping, fighting, running, swimming, dancing, of course, etc. And we brought them to life into Sandbox. So if you own an NFT that you acquired outside Sandbox, you are able to play with it into Sandbox as well. That, I believe, is also something quite unique that the Open Metaverse has to offer for users.
Very good. And maybe you can bring this to life by giving us some examples or use cases how maybe some of the brands like Atari or the Smurfs or some of the brands you've talked about, how they are using the Sandbox at the moment. What experiences are they creating?
Well, that's a really good timing that you're asking. Like, as soon as we launch season 3, you'll be able to actually not only see, but play within the experience of Atari, of Smurf. They are creating experience that can, first of all, be social hubs. Then, of course, games of adventures, of exploration, social and multiplayer games as well. And they're offering content, official content as NFTs that their fans and other creators can use to make their own games as well using the game maker. So that's also something unique, is like they embrace the creativity of users and UGC content to expand their whole universe in the metaverse by allowing the fan to just create whatever they want with them. That will be they can publish onto their own land. Meaning, like, then you might find a Smurf here or there into other worlds. That's something I find is really unique as well. Like that, the fact that brands accept to have on their land that mixture, but also users can bring many branded content with their own creation alongside. We encourage that creativity with contests called Game Jams, Creativity Contest, or Voxel, VoxEdit, 3D Editor Contest. And we also encourage the brand to create avatar collections. So imagine with a Smurf being able to play with one of, let's say, 10,000 unique Smurf with different hat color, skin color, different outfits, etc. And that Smurf is unique and becomes your identity in the metaverse. So there is no other Smurf like you, and you can play across different games with Smurf. I really find it cool because that also means that when you meet other users in the metaverse, it's very creative. It's very open-minded in terms of like how you interact with other users and the representation that other users have. Like they're no longer like just men and women. We are not trying to make avatars look like ourselves, but we're taking a whole like more creative approach where anyone chooses appearance, his size, etc., and we play and we recognize as we want to be. And that's a chance as well to be more inclusive. There's a collection called People of Crypto, which is like working to bring more inclusive avatar from LGBTQ plus communities, as well as disabled people as well. So you can be as an avatar represented as to support disabled people. You can also show your sexual orientation with bracelet colors. So it's pretty interesting how they took that and in this month, you're going to see an event celebrating the Meta called Meta Pride, so celebrating Pride Month, so that the metaverse as well can play an important role towards like showing that openness of culture.
Very good. What do you think are some of the regulatory challenges when it comes to the metaverse?
There's definitely plenty of challenges ahead. First of all, like how to ensure safety of users, safety in terms of like we want to, as we are going to spend an increasing amount of time with our avatar across different experiences, we want to make sure like that we can do it safely and we can have fun without being disturbed, harassed, etc. It's a very important topic that we're already trying to address by partnering with various companies that bring like community managers and people in charge of monitoring what's happening into those virtual worlds. So we try to be as early as possible to tackle those issues. I also think like since we're talking about like digital asset of value, at some point you want to make sure like who you transfer it to and how you turn the content into a revenue stream that could become your salary is also supported by a legal framework that would protect you also in the real world as you cash out, for example, your earning and use them to spend into the real world. So there's some countries with very advanced regulation and frameworks around digital assets that seems to be more friendly toward metaverse and already part of it. For example, Dubai with the VARA, the Virtual Asset Regulation Authority, they acquired land. They were the first regulator to actually acquire land into a metaverse sandbox and use it to be part of it, to be part of this ecosystem and understand how it works so that it can support better the business, entrepreneur, and people that will spend time in it. There's other framework which are more restrictive and didn't take into consideration like what NFTs are versus other type of digital assets such as cryptocurrency and are trying to regulate them all in the same way, which could be too prohibitive for actually a whole digital economy in metaverse to take off or even NFT in gaming to happen. And that, for example, is the case of MiCA regulation in Europe that's by requesting like to identify users, do the KYC from the first cent they spend onto an NFT, which is very constraining in terms of like the applicability of it and will most likely create more friction for all the companies creating those worlds, creating those games with NFTs. That's why companies such as Ubisoft, Sorare, or Sandbox actually are trying to make MiCA regulation amended so that entertainment gaming is excluded from it because it just doesn't allow like we want it to be protective of users, but we also have to be able as gaming platform to operate properly.
Interesting. So how is the sandbox governed at the moment? Is it a decentralized autonomous organization?
Not yet. The sandbox is the goal and the aim is of sandbox is like within 3 to 5 years, the sandbox will be fully decentralized, meaning like users will own 100% of the land on the map, will own 100% of the sand, the utility token of the platform, avatars, etc. And us as a platform will be just minor actor and have a minor ownership among all the other users, meaning like we can have in place this decentralized, this DAO, this decentralized autonomous organization, where the various stakeholder of the platform, landowners, players, sandholders, can participate and engage with like the key decision that will make the world evolve through the development roadmap, through the grants that are being given, through the management of land in reserve that we keep to give to creative brands or new creators in the future, evolve in a direction that like the community wants to evolve.
Interesting. So if it was to become a completely decentralized autonomous organization, then run by the people that own it, what's stopping them from potentially creating more land in the future? Because you said that the amount of land is limited at the moment.
So the land itself is there is a smart contract on the blockchain that is public, audited, available on GitHub that anyone can see. And that smart contract at the very beginning has this definition that it cannot create land outside of this 408 by 408 square at 166, 464. So that would mean community would need to vote to create a new world, totally separate on a new contract. That means like it's a different kind of land, technically. And I feel like that's already going to be, it's actually 166, 464 land is a lot. It's a large amount of space, meaning we'll need to have hundreds of millions of users to probably have the right number of creators who populate all the time those 166, 164 land. So there's nothing empty or not being actively developed. So that I don't think there will be a need ever for more lands to be created based on that.
Very good. So looking into the future, then what are your future predictions or future hopes for this whole field of the metaverse and Web3? If you were to look 10 years ahead, what do you see?
I definitely see the metaverse, as I mentioned, as a place for like creativity and imagination supported by technology. Meaning right now, the metaverse is as good as the content we can find in it. The content I mentioned is limited because the technical capability of Sandbox are still in their development. In 5 to 10 years, I'm expecting Sandbox to be much different from what you're seeing today, just like it is so different that when it started 10 years ago. If you look at some picture, it was this 2D pixelated game. So then with better technology, we can hope for like more multiplayer experiences. Maybe AR and VR will be mature by that time and will bring significant value and be less constraining in terms of user experience. Maybe we're going to see even better graphics thanks to increased computing power accessible to everyone, which means like the resolution of voxels to increase, the expression, facial expression, or the way like they dress, the tiny detail that makes you increase your identity through the logos, etc., will also increase, and we can hope the whole metaverse to reach not just from the aesthetic graphic quality point of view, but from the creative point of view, even more immersion and even more kind of experience than we're seeing today. I also think like it would become the norm, like people will first launch content experience in the metaverse. You will be going to follow your favorite artists, listen to their performance, discover talents, find people who are ready to create like your next house in the metaverse, your next place for avatar to live and spend time together into there.
Fantastic. Super exciting. This is such an exciting space to be in. I am definitely keeping a close eye on the developments in the sandbox and other virtual worlds. I find this super fascinating, how this whole field of metaverse and Web3 are emerging and merging together and bringing technology like AI and mixed reality to life as well. So thank you very much for your time. Anyone who ever wants to re-watch this conversation, head to my YouTube channel, where you can find hundreds of other super exciting conversations about future business and technology trends. Thank you very much, Sebastien.
Thank you, and see you in the metaverse.
Thank you.